So by now, we will have posted our video showing this colt's first ride and probably a ride or two after that. And one thing I've been asked for a long time is why I almost always back my horse up on the first ride. Why wouldn't he back up on the first ride? He's been backed up on the ground. He's a little lost. He goes forward. He goes backward. That's a backup. He comes back. Good. 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 A lot of people don't choose to do that. Maybe their horse isn't prepared. I go out of my way to have my horse prepared because I think that backing up is part of the whole riding process, and you may as well get on with it. Also teaches a horse to soften up, kind of take that pressure on their nose and get away from it, so that when you go to teach them to stop, or when you pick up on their face, they're just a little more educated. So you start with that on the ground. And of course, he's been standing here for a little bit. So I like to move the horse around so they haven't just sat there and congealed. And then I'll pick up on him. And first of all, I'm not even gonna worry much about putting pressure on his face. I just want him to step back. Now, he's obviously had this done with him, and it probably would be a better video if we had one that hadn't. But you want to do what you need to do to get them to where they're walking backwards in a purposeful way. So you can see I'm not having to beg him, I'm not having to drive him back or be aggressive with him. Then the next thing I'll do is I will have handy a little dressage whip or a training stick. You can use the ends of your reins. I just find that this is a little handier, and I may actually ride with a dressage whip, so getting them acquainted is not a bad thing. But before I go to that, I want to see what happens if I just, instead of driving them back, if I take a feel on the reins and push him back. Now see, I didn't have to push. I put some tension on there just to let him know, and he steps back. Now, if he was to resist, what I would do is put that tension on and go tap, 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 tap. Now, you can imagine how bad that hurts. I don't feel that, and I was just barely touching him. They firmly believe that it's a very frightening thing that you come at them with a stick, but you don't want to get them scared. You just want them to be respectful. And then they almost overreact. So you're not just causing pain, you're directing them backwards. So I got a little pressure on his nose, and I'm saying step back. And then I always like to kind of rub it off to where this stick is only a whip when I'm using it with intention. The rest of the time, it's just a piece of plastic from Tractor Supply. Now, there's another thing to be done, and that is when you back him up under saddle, you're not going to be able to be standing here and sitting up there at the same time. Far as I know, unless I was twins, I couldn't do that. So I'll put the reins up in the riding position, and then I'll say, now I'm gonna ride you on the ground. And you can see he's not quite as responsive because that's a little different position for him, but you ought to be able to get to where you take that slack out and you get that purposeful backward movement. And there's a gentleman named Pat Puckett. He's a old school California bridle horseman that has a very good YouTube channel. But he makes a distinction that I like. He says, you don't just want your horse to back up. That's just backward motion. You want him to walk backwards. So right there, he's just backing up. But there, he's walking backwards. And he got crooked. I'm not real worried about that right now. I just want his feet moving backwards, and I want them walking backward. Now you can get a horse to where they fall back every time you get close to them. So you want to be sure to do other things, move around, but when it's time and you pick up, see, and he's a little sticky. So that's where I'll go back to my donkey stick. This is a fairly clever colt. He sees the stick, he says, why don't I just volunteer some stuff before I even get in trouble? Well, I like you don't want to be in trouble, but let's just show how this works. If they're not backing up, you go tap, tap. You're up there in the riding position, and you're getting that more purposeful movement. Maybe I'll do that from the other side of him because I have a feeling I may be blocking the shot a little bit. So you take up the slack, and you go tap, tap, not a side pass, there you go. So he kind of outwalked me a little bit. And that's, you don't want them to get too hair trigger about it. You don't want them to get troubled, so I'm just gonna hang out here for a minute. Let him kind of wind himself down and relax. Wind himself down and relax. This fellow worries a lot about getting in trouble. It's funny because he never really got in much trouble. Maybe that's why. Back, back, back. And see, he's got plenty of backup right now. And he's kind of overreacting a little bit, but it's there. And if you watch the first ride video, you'll see that he did back up pretty well the first time. That's been progressing. This is where it starts. Don't get on their back and think you're gonna haul back on them and have them figure it out on your first ride. Put those building blocks on. You'll have something useful on that first ride and forever after that. So those are some thoughts on the backup. We're gonna do some more things with this colt, but for now, we'll see you next time.